What if Nancy Guthrie's kidnapper was already hiding in her neighborhood before the crime even happened? Not miles away, not in another city, right there, on her street, in a house next to hers, a house that went vacant days before she disappeared. The FBI wants to know why, and 2 months later, nobody has given them an answer. This case just changed direction. And what is surfacing now is worse than anyone imagined. For those just catching up, here is what you need to know, and pay attention because every detail matters. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She is the mother of Savannah Guthrie, co-anchor of the Today Show on NBC, one of the most watched morning programs in the United States. Nancy is a widow who has lived alone for decades in Catalina Foothills, a quiet residential neighborhood north of Tucson, Arizona. Her life was simple, predictable routine. Every Sunday morning, she would watch a church service streamed live online. She never missed it. On the evening of January 31st, 2026, a Saturday, Nancy had dinner with her family. Her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, dropped her off at her front door around 9:45 p.m. He waited for her to go inside. She went in. Door closed. Good night. End of the evening, except it was not. Shortly after midnight, a security camera on the front door recorded a figure approaching, a full face mask, gloves, a black Ozark Trail backpack on the person's back, and a gun in an improvised holster. The person looked directly at the camera, tried to knock it off with light taps, could not, then grabbed leaves from a garden plant and covered the lens. At 1:50 a.m., the Nest camera on the house was disconnected. 20 minutes later, another exterior camera detected motion. And at 2:28 a.m., Nancy's pacemaker stopped transmitting its signal to the app on her phone. When the family arrived the next day, around 11 in the morning, because Nancy had not shown up for her online church service, they found the house empty. Bloodstains at the entrance. DNA confirmed it was her blood. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos classified the case as an abduction. The FBI entered hours later. Ransom notes appeared demanding payment in cryptocurrency. 2 deadlines passed with no response. On February 24th, the family offered a $1 million reward. 2 months later, no suspect identified, no arrests, no motive disclosed. And now, the investigation has turned to a place nobody expected. The FBI went back to Nancy's neighborhood, but this time the agents are no longer looking inside her house. They are looking outside. They are looking at the neighbors. According to News Nation's senior investigative reporter Brian Entin, FBI agents have been going door to door in recent weeks. But not with generic questions like, "Did you see anything unusual?" No. They wanted names. Specific names. Contractors, construction workers, landscapers, pool workers, electricians, anyone who had physical access to that neighborhood in the weeks leading up to the crime. One local resident said an agent visited a friend of hers who has a house under construction on a nearby property and asked for the complete list of every professional who had been on site. Names, phone numbers, dates they worked, hours of entry and exit, everything. This was not a casual question. It was a structured interrogation. Former FBI agent Steve Moore explained what this means. According to him, when the FBI asks for specific names of workers in a given area, they are not fishing in the dark. They are looking for someone who had legitimate access to the neighborhood, someone who could park there, walk there, spend hours there without anyone finding it strange. Someone who used that legitimacy as cover. This is not a step backward in the investigation. It is a step forward. They are looking at a category of suspect that no one had publicly considered until now. But what agents found at a neighboring property raised an even more disturbing question. Residents in the neighborhood told the FBI that a house close to Nancy's was vacated shortly before the disappearance. The tenants left abruptly. No clear explanation, no extended notice to the neighbors. They simply packed up and left, and the timing is impossible to ignore. The house went vacant days before Nancy was abducted. Investigative reporter Dave Mack confirmed that shortly after Nancy's disappearance, tenants of a nearby home left the neighborhood. The FBI is asking questions about that property, and the theory that emerged from this is deeply unsettling. Bob Krieger, a retired SWAT commander from Pima County with decades of experience in tactical operations and high-risk situations, explained in detail what a vacant house can mean in a case like this. According to him, an unoccupied property near the target is the perfect staging location. It functions as a place for preparation, observation, and retreat. The suspect would have a place to observe Nancy's routine without attracting attention, would know what time she turns the lights on, what time she turns them off, when she leaves, when she has visitors, would have a natural excuse for being in the area, whether as a supposed tenant or as someone doing maintenance. Could even install remote surveillance equipment inside the empty house without anyone noticing. A vacant house a few yards from the target is not just an empty space, it is operational cover, and it is not just theory. Nancy's neighbor, Aldine Meister, had already reported something unusual before any of this happened. About 3 weeks before the crime, she saw an unfamiliar man walking down the street in the neighborhood. He was hiding his face with a hat pulled low, and he stood there, staring directly at Nancy's house, for far too long for it to be a coincidence. Meister thought it was strange at the time, but she moved on with her day. It was only after Nancy disappeared that she connected the dots. 3 weeks before, the exact same window when the masked man first appeared on Nancy's doorbell camera on January 11th. And here is a crucial detail. On that first appearance, the man had no backpack and no weapon. He was just watching, scouting the terrain, mapping cameras, testing angles, learning the security system. And when you connect that with what Nancy's own cameras recorded in the weeks before the crime, things become even more unsettling. The FBI managed to recover additional images from 3 cameras installed on Nancy's property. One was mounted on a fence aimed at the backyard and pool area. Another covered the driveway and the side of the house. The third was the front door camera, the one that captured the masked man and that the entire world has already seen. The recovered images were not full videos, they were thumbnails, small photos automatically captured when the motion sensors were triggered by any presence. These images showed landscapers working in the yard, a pool worker doing maintenance, family members coming and going normally. All recorded in the weeks before the crime. Nothing deemed suspicious. But here is the point that made investigators uncomfortable. On the night of the abduction, the backyard and garage cameras recorded absolutely nothing. Zero activation. No motion detected, no thumbnails generated. And this while an 84-year-old woman was being taken from inside the house by at least one armed individual. Investigators described this total absence of recording with a single word: odd. There's no official conclusion about why the cameras failed. There is no evidence they were shut down remotely. There is no evidence they were physically damaged. They simply did not trigger. Security expert Ed Burnett offered a possible explanation. According to him, if the abductors had prior knowledge of Nancy's security system, they may have employed methods to bypass the sensors without physically damaging the hardware. They may have identified the dead angles, the range limits of the motion sensors, the intervals between activations, and used exactly those blind spots to move without being recorded. In other words, they knew where the cameras could not reach, and they walked right through those gaps. Now, put it all together. The suspect knew the camera blind spots. A neighboring house may have served as an operational base. He monitored Nancy's routine for at least 3 weeks. Her back door was propped open when police arrived, which, according to former NYPD detective Michael Alcazar, strongly suggests the presence of more than one kidnapper. The ransom notes were sent in cryptocurrency, demonstrating above-average technical knowledge, and the suspect appeared in the neighborhood weeks earlier without a weapon and without a backpack in a classic terrain reconnaissance. This is not a crime of opportunity. This is not impulse. This is a planned operation, with time, with structure, with access to the neighborhood, and very likely with more than one person involved. The FBI asked for the names of workers because someone who was moving through that area legitimately may have gathered information about the house, the routine, the cameras, the times when Nancy was alone, or that person may have been the one who carried it out. Thousands of tips have been received, hours and hours of video analyzed frame by frame, and still, 2 months later, no arrest. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. Her pacemaker stopped transmitting at 2:28 a.m. on February 1st, 2026, and has never sent a signal since. Savannah Guthrie dropped her coverage of the Winter Olympics to return to Arizona and dedicate herself to searching for her mother. The family continues to wait. The county remains divided. The sheriff remains under political pressure, and Nancy remains missing. The FBI has said the investigation remains active and will continue until Nancy is found or all leads are exhausted. If you have any information, you can call 1-800-CALL-FBI, call 520-351-4900, or visit tipsfbi.gov. I want to hear what you think. Do you believe someone from inside the neighborhood helped with this crime? A worker who gathered information? A neighbor who provided access? Someone who knew exactly where the cameras could not reach? Drop your theory in the comments. Every detail could be the one that cracks this case open. And if you have not seen the first video with the full case from the beginning, it is right up here. Subscribe to follow every update.